G'day Reefers, I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Thanks for watching Gallery Aquatica TV. Today we have a big job. We're going to be doing a relocation of an existing reef tank, and we've got one major complication. But let's have a look at the tank and then we'll run you through how we're going to get this job done. So this is the tank that we're relocating. It's a Cade 900. It's around about 3 foot, or it's 900 mil long by 70 mil wide by, I think it's about 2 foot deep. So it's not a huge tank, but it is 12 mil thick glass, and you can see it's got this beautiful rimless finish to the top. We also have got a Giesemann LED light on this light mount. Now this is something which could be a little bit of a problem, pulling this light mount down and fitting it into the ute. The tank is bare bottom and it's an absolutely beautiful tank. The fish and the corals are doing great. Everything looks really happy and it's a very beautiful tank. One thing that we were glad to see with this tank is that it is a bare bottom tank, which will make the relocation that little bit easier. So let's have a look at the filter. I'll open up the cabinet. So the sump has got sort of 4 stages. We've got the protein skimmer, which is Vertex. It's also relatively free of media and things in the sump, so this should be fairly straightforward. The plumbing on these tanks is relatively easy as well. So the main complication we're going to have will be downstairs at the vehicle, and we'll show you that soon. So I'm getting the hose set up because the first thing we're going to do is start draining the tank. So I've just taken a little bit of the water out and I've stopped the hose here with the valve, and what I'm going to do next is take out as many of the corals as possible and bag them up and put them into a foam box. The fish are going to go into a barrel with an aerator, but the corals will be the first thing that I do, so I'll start bagging these up. It's got an anemone attached to it. I'll come back to that one. Alright, so this Symphilia. So the way that I'm bagging them up is different to how we bag up at the shop. At the shop we pump the bag full of oxygen, and that will allow fish and corals a bit more time in the bag safely, but given that the corals don't require as much oxygen, this way is going to be totally fine for today. And basically what I do is I hold the bag like so, the seams line up, you trap as much air in there as possible, folding down the top, and then gather it together to tie it with a rubber band. Now, I'm actually making these bags a little bit smaller than I would normally. We don't have too long before these corals will be back in the tank, but also I need to fit all these corals in a single foam box. And I'm actually going to double bag this one. Symphilia have got some very sharp spikes on them. Okay, and in the box. So I think we've got space for probably another 10, 12 corals, which looks about right. So I'll bag all these guys up. Okay, So I'm going to take this Giardini out, and you can see that there's a clownfish which is hosting to it. It does have a bubble tip anemone on the other side of the tank, and it seems to move between the two. So hopefully he won't be too upset when I move this guy. There we go. Giardinis have a tendency of appearing a lot bigger than they actually are. And I was thinking that this guy might fit in a medium bag when he shrinks down a bit, but I'm going to need to reassess that. I think it's time for a big bag. Of course, I'm trying to reduce the amount of big bags I'm using because all of these corals have to fit in the one box. It's a beautiful coral. I'm double bagging all of these corals. There seem to be a few small vermitids or something which are going to pierce the bags. So just to be safe, I'm double bagging everything. So this anemone has got himself across 3 different rocks. And one of the rocks is actually the base of this hammer coral. So I don't want to damage this guy, but he needs to come off. So I'm just getting my fingernail underneath his foot, and oh, there we go. So I've got the hammer free, and whilst I'm at it, I'll see if I can get him off the rock, because I really want to have this rock, oh, there we go. I really want this rock to be in its own box, and I don't want any water in that box, so anemones really need to travel in water. Come on. Oh, so you can see the clownfish are over here too now. Without the Giardini in here, they've come over to their other option, which is the anemone. Oh, alright. Slowly and carefully is the trick when you're pulling an anemone off a rock. They will heal from a torn base, but it's definitely preferable to not tear it if you can. But let's get him off whilst the opportunity's there. It's good to be able to give the anemone its own bag. So a job like this is all about multitasking. I normally try and do 2 or 3 things at one time so that I can get the job done as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to start to fill our fish barrel with some water. Now I want to take a fair bit of water with this, so I'm going to half fill 2 barrels. So as soon as I've got the rock out, all I have to do is net the fish out, chuck them in the barrel and put a bubbler on them, and they'll be all good for hours. So I started to drain the tank again, but I've stopped it down to about what is 1/3 of the volume of the tank. I'm going to catch the fish out, put them into here. As you can see, all of the rock is into the barrel. I had to put some water, about 10 centimeters worth of water, in the bottom of the barrel because one of the rocks had a small anemone that we couldn't get off. So now, time to catch the fish. Hopefully I should be able to get them all in one go. 4 clowns, 2 cardinals, 2 tangs. I won't get them all together. I'll get all these guys. Sometimes you need to be careful exactly what fish go in the net together. Tangs can spine other fish. Dangai cardinal. Alright, I'll get this purple tang. Such a nice sized purple tang. Getting along very well with the yellow tang too, we've been told. 2 clownfish, come on. Alright, so the last fish is one of the Bengais. Alright, now as always, straight on air with the bubbler. There we go. But what I'm going to do is feed it up through the lid. And this way we have basically a sealed barrel, oxygenated beautifully, and this will be adequate for the fish, probably for another 2 days if we needed, but we'll have them in the tank, set up at the other side in probably about 3 hours. When you're doing an aquarium relocation, the most important thing to remember is you have to preserve the beneficial bacteria that keeps the water chemistry good when you set the tank back up again. So we have our barrel full of rock, and I'm going to put some butcher's paper that I'm just going to wet in the tank water over the rock so that the rock doesn't dry out too much. I've got a heap of this butcher's paper here, so we'll use a few pieces. And by keeping it moist, by keeping it out of direct sunlight, we'll stop it from drying out, and all the good bacteria will be preserved so that when we set this tank back up again, we're not going to have problems with ammonia or other nitrogenous wastes. So I'm going to start taking out some of the components of the filtration. So I'm going to start with this protein skimmer. The cup is actually quite dirty. So there we go. So I'm going to take it off before I pull the unit out of the tank. Alright, it's good to slowly pull the skimmer out to allow it to drain out of water, drain water out of it, so you don't end up spilling too much water in the process. Now I'm going to put this into the bucket backwards. Alright, I'll take this and the skimmer cup. So it's always handy doing a job like this to have a water transfer pump, and I've just got this little, there's a Nios and some 16mm hose, and I'm going to use it to pump water from the sump up into the tank because it's easier to drain from the tank being higher than it is from the sump. So I'll plug this in. It's also going to allow me to ensure that each section of the sump is well and truly drained. Sometimes you have the problem that you'll have a back section, and this is going to do it here, a back section that doesn't drain in the same way as the front. So we want to remove all the water so it's as easy as possible when we have to lift this thing. So something about these Cade tanks is that they have a section behind the tank for the filtration and the plumbing and the overflow. Now, some of this section, or this part on the left-hand side, does actually stay full with water, and so I'm going to drain water from here into the tank itself so that our main hose can drain it out into the sink. So I'll see if this reaches the bottom. Not quite. So I'll go in this way. Another factor about this rear filtration section is it means that there is one extra piece of glass, and so given that this is 12mm glass, it's quite thick glass. For a 3-foot tank, it's actually pretty heavy. It's 12mm with an extra panel of glass. So we need to make sure that all the water possible is out of this tank. So how's that? Drained the entire tank minus about 1 litre. just with this hose, and taking the little basket strainer off the bottom makes it so much better, and getting a tight seal on the bottom of the tank. This is another reason why a bare bottom tank is easier to move. So I'll pack up the hose and then we'll go downstairs and I'll show you what is going to be the biggest complication with this whole job. So this is our problem. We hadn't seen the tank, we hadn't seen where we were going, and so we chose not to bring the big ute, we chose not to bring the trailer, and so this ute is all we have in terms of the space to get this tank, the fish barrels, the corals, the boxes, the trolley, everything has to fit on this ute to get it back to Brisbane. So this is going to be the hard part. I'm just going to put the fish up on the ute for now, and then we'll go upstairs, we'll break down the tank and find a way to fit everything on this ute. So we're going to take the light off the light mount, and it's really a two-person job because it's very important that this isn't dropped into the tank. And so there's 4 Phillips head screw points that we have to undo. So I'll have to hold this until all the screws are off, so it might start getting a bit heavy. So I was pretty impressed with how far down we drained it with our main hose, but I need to get all of the water out of this tank because we're going to have to transport it on its back, and I'll show you why when we're downstairs. But I'm going to use the dustpan just to get this last, what's probably only 3 litres, I'm guessing. So we're going to use glass grips to lift this tank off the cabinet onto our trolley. Now these glass grips are rated for 300 kilos each, but the important thing is you need to ensure that the glass that they're gripping onto is clean and dry. Alright, so I'm going to put 1 here, a second one on this end, and 2 on the other end of the tank. So these cage tanks are awesome, but one complication with relocating them is that there are these bulkheads that hang down lower than the bottom of the tank. And so whenever you're moving these tanks, you have to ensure that you don't do damage to these, or else it's a big problem. So the stand is designed so that the tank can slide out the back, and we won't have to lift the bulkheads over the stand, but we do have to make sure that when we put the tank on the trolley, that we don't put any pressure on these bulkheads, or else they will snap. So we have to be really careful with this next move. Alright, success. So now we just have to take the tank downstairs, work out how to fit it on the ute, and what we're going to do with the cabinet. The sump is going to take up the space in the cabinet. We're going to have to leave it there, there's no choice. So hopefully it's not too heavy, but fitting it on the ute is our challenge today. So we've decided what we're going to do is put the tank onto a couple of foam boxes whilst we go get the cabinet. Now this is because we may need the trolley when we have the tank on the ute. But regardless, we'll chuck it on. These foam boxes are incredibly strong. We'll look a bit close there, but that's alright. They're incredibly strong, and they're normally pretty stable too. So we're going to try something crazy. Because we have to worry about those bulkheads jutting out the bottom of the tank, we're going to look at if it's going to work having the tank on the trolley on the back of the ute. So we're going to try lifting the tank up, repositioning it and sliding it down, and then we're going to have to ensure that we can strap it down in a way that the tank is not going anywhere. So I'm confident. I've never done it like this before, but we'll see how it goes. You ready? Confident. Okay. We're going to have to be very careful how we pack this, of course, And I think we'll use some foam box lids in between the front of the tank and the back of the cabin. But we'll get the cabinet up first and see exactly how much space we've got. So this is the question, can we fit our fish barrel up? This is the last big thing that we have to fit, and it's going to be close. Hooray! It's going to work. This is coming together nicely. So we've got the tank out of the room, everything is downstairs. We still have to finish off packing the ute, but we're good to go and we're pretty much onto the next site. So this is where the tank has stood for the last few years, and everything is downstairs. We just have to finish off packing the ute, and then we're going to move it to the next customer's house so that he can enjoy it into the future. So let's go. So before we leave, we just have to say a big thank you to Finn. We turned up with 2 people and it was probably a job that needed 4. So thanks very much, Finn.
No worries, thank you, Cameron.
You had a beautiful tank,
yes.
And you can always have another one in the future.
Yes.
Come to Gallery Aquatica and we'll set you up with something special. But anyway, we're going to get going. Time to go back to Brisbane.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers. So here we are, we've just arrived on site, and we'll have a look at how the tank has travelled. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking because you never know if something is shifted, and don't forget we have that tank on the trolley, but we'll check it out and then we'll take it inside and set it up. So everything looks pretty good. The tank certainly hasn't shifted and they can't see any cracks, which is always a good thing. Looks like everything has travelled really, really well. So we just have to get this inside now. So the 2 nerve-wracking parts of when we arrive on site at the second location, first of all is making sure that the tank hasn't cracked. But the second is the condition of the fish. And so we're opening this up for the first time. How do they look? Excellent, all right. This is exactly what we want to see. The tang, the yellow tank's leaning on its side, but that's totally normal. The Banggai cardinals are sitting in position, but they're all acting very naturally and they're really as unstressed as possible. The colour's all good. I think we've done well. So I'll put the oxygen back on and we'll get these guys inside. So here we are. I'm back with this light again. I'm going to have to do the opposite of what we did previously. Hold it in place whilst the fittings are reattached. As you can see, our tank is in position. We've got the plumbing done underneath. We haven't really put any of the hardware in apart from the return pump. So we still have to put the skimmer in, we have to arrange all the cables. But the best thing is that we've got it in place so we can start to fill it. Once the tank is full, we can start to acclimate the fish in. Over here we have our base camp. And so at base camp we have our fish, our rock in the barrel, all the dry box and wet boxes that we've used to relocate our tank. So now we just have to get this light on and we'll start filling the tank. So we realised that the light mount was actually sitting too high. So unfortunately we had to take the light off, pull the tank out, drop the mount down, and now put this light back on. And this Giesman light is an awesome LED, but it is heavy. I don't know why I got this job again. So this is the exciting part. We get to fill the tank up, and we actually went back to the shop, got the Colorado with the water tank on the back, and we're going to use natural seawater to fill this tank up. It's just a lot easier and quicker than bringing it from site, but we'll hit the go button on this. And here comes the water. So we've just filled up the tank using natural seawater, and we need another 20, 30, 40 litres or so of water, and we're going to use water out of the bucket or the barrel that the fish have been transported in. So I'm just using our water transfer pump for this purpose. And once we've drained the fish barrel down to about 15 centimeters from the bottom, I'm going to then acclimate the fish into this new water. Because we've used so much new seawater, we need to ensure that the fish aren't exposed to a sudden change in temperature, salinity or pH. So we're going to acclimate these fish into the tank. So I was quite impressed with Finn's aquascaping on this tank that we unfortunately had to destroy to relocate the tank. So I'm just kind of putting the rocks in a similar sort of two-bomby configuration to how he had it. Obviously you'll need to be properly scaped in the future. So the corals are in their bags floating in the tank. We'll open them up in a sec. We're just letting them acclimate to the temperature, although it's pretty similar. We're just putting some more water from the fish barrel into the tank, and we'll continue acclimating the fish into the new water. Alright, so here's our anemone. Now, one of the problems with anemones is they can end up in wave makers. So we might turn the wave maker off in a minute. We'll see if he attaches. But when they puff up like this, it often causes them to float around the tank, and we definitely don't want it. Yeah, I'm going to turn off the wave maker. So we'll let some of these other corals out first. So this is that massive Giardini. So nice. It's perfectly flat base. It's excellent for a bare bottom tank. So all the corals are in. You may notice that we've got some really heavy micro bubbling, and the reason for that is that the return pump in the sump is actually sucking air. The water level in the return pump chamber is low, and it's sucking air, creating these micro bubbles. And the reason is that we've actually got exactly the right amount of water, because we're going to need the water that's in with the fish to put into the system for it to actually level out and stop with the micro bubbling. So we're lucky that we have enough water, but only just. So it's finally time, the most exciting part of the whole day. We're going to put the fish back in their tank. Purple tang, bangai, one clown. Here comes the yellow tang. Bangai cardinal. Another clown. Alright, last fish, little Clarky clown. I'm going to tip in the water. And they all look pretty good. They're all swimming around nicely. The bangais have found each other already. The yellow tang is sort of hiding at the back there, but Importantly, you can see that none of the fish are breathing heavily. They're not sitting on the bottom and acting lethargic. We can be sure that these fish are going to be totally fine. The corals too are showing quite good polyp extension given what they've just gone through. So I think we can call this a successful job. And I find it really interesting to think about the fact that we've relocated a tank of this size with this amount of livestock, and we've done it with just one single ute. So thanks for watching Gallery Aquatica TV. I'm Cam the Fish Guy. Happy reefing. So that's our video for today. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe as well. We'll be putting out videos every week showing a new tank with new products. There's going to be lots in all the videos. I'm Cam the Fish Guy, and keep on reefing.